Welcome to the Power of Connection podcast, where we explore the power of connection in personal relationships, work, and community. Here's your host, Luciano Bonilla.
Welcome to the Power of Connection podcast. I'm your host, Luciano Bonilla. Our guest today is Martha Hope. She is the founder and CEO of the Senior Expressions Organization, which is advocating for seniors' mental health. Her organization will be hosting the second annual Senior Ball that will take place on Saturday, August 13th. Her organization also facilitates outreach by providing engaging activities as it relates to mental health and the well-being of seniors. I met Martha Hope through our larger Toastmasters community. Let's welcome our guest today, Martha Hope. Welcome. Thank you for joining us in a podcast.
Thank you for having me, Lou. I am so excited about being here. It was when I got the invitation, I was saying, thank you for thinking of me. I want to talk a little bit, yes, about seniors, being a senior myself, and I guess helping you out and me out too as far as Toastmasters goes. I've learned so much from Toastmasters, as I know you have too, and I just love the organization. I do.
Well, thank you. When I found out that you are the founder of this organization, Senior Expressions, I wanted to get you on the podcast because I believe the work that you're doing is bringing connection to a needed population. Can you share the story behind you starting that organization?
I most certainly can, Lou, because it has personal, deep-seated issues with my own self. Because as a senior, we go through one stage, one passage to another. But I lost my husband about 5 years ago, a little over 5 years ago. And I didn't realize that I was lonely. I knew about loneliness, and you work with people that are lonely, and you're always kind of pumping them up and saying, it's going to be okay, you need to get out more, and this and that. So my husband and I were childhood sweethearts. So we dated 3 years before that, and then we got married, and I was only 19 at the time. So when he passed away, we had been married like 53, 54 years. Wow. So it was a journey and a friendship. He was not only my husband, he was my lover and my friend, my confidant. So I was sitting in my chair in the bedroom one evening, and I started crying. And I didn't know what I was crying about, Lou. I just started weeping, and then it came to me, something that I had not done the whole time he was gone, is cry like that. So what happened was, it just kind of came to me that you're here by yourself. You're living alone. I had never, ever, ever been alone. I married from home, and that was it. And I married somebody that I was familiar with, and I was with that person all of those years. So it was trauma that I didn't recognize. So I started talking to people because I'm involved in many things in the community. And I started talking to people, and you'd be surprised who is really lonely. And I guess I know loneliness because I visit hospitals and I visit nursing homes. And my first job was at the Jewish Home and Infirmary when I was 16. And I knew about loneliness, but somehow I did not identify it and acknowledge it with me. But I know I was really busy. And what happened was, a friend of mine who is a psychiatrist, he lives in Atlanta. And so I was telling him about how I was feeling. So he says, so what you doing these days, So I said, being very busy. He said, that's one thing, overly busy. And I says, I'm eating more donuts and cookies than I've eaten in a while. I'm always hungry for something sweet. He kept naming them off, I said, their clothes piled up beside my bed on my bench. And I'm very neat. I'm a very neat person. I don't like to see things out of place. Yeah. So he said, and that's another thing. He said, Martha, you're lonely. You're not isolating yourself, but you're lonely. So go ahead and admit it. So I said, so what do I do now? What am I supposed to be doing now? He said, the same thing that you do for other people, do it for yourself. You can be lonely in a crowd of people. And that was what was happening with me. I was lonely, and because my network, and I have supportive friends, I have a supportive church family, I have family that are supportive. I can't even leave the house because I'm a person of habit. I know I went to the laundromat one morning early to wash the big blankets and that, and I didn't tell anybody. About 7 o'clock in the morning, and they kept calling, but I had my phone was in the car, in my purse. And when I knew anything, my sister was calling around. She says, we're getting ready to call the police.
Oh, wow.
Because they, couldn't reach me because I'm such a person of habit. So just to make a long story short, out of my own issues, my own challenges, that's how it all came about. So because we are human, and we need that human connection, but we also have to acknowledge that we all have issues, and there's this mental thing that's going on all the time. And emotionally and mentally, we know the brain controls everything.
Yes.
If the brain says that you've got a bad knee, okay, you got a bad knee. Whether it's bad or not, you can talk yourself into it. The brain just starts to calculate those things for you. So that's how it really started. So after talking to people, and I decided it didn't start out as an organization. It just kind of happened as an organization. So I started talking to friends in different places, partners, and gathering partners. And I started going to the high rises in the city and bringing resources from U of R, Lifespan, Elite, everywhere that I thought that people might need that kind of information. And that's how it all started. And it just kept growing and growing and growing. So I said, well, I'll create some fun activities. So I did a cruise on the Erie Canal so people could see the locks. You'll be surprised at people that have not taken that experienced that. And the people from U of R came. Many of the partners came and brought gifts and that for people. They didn't want to get off the boat. I said, I don't know what you're going to do, but you got to get off. But it was a wonderful experience. So that was like a sellout. The cruise was. So then I decided to do a senior ball. What about all of those folks that never went to their senior ball? You get to meet new people, see your old friends, that kind of thing. So I had the senior ball last year, and it was a hit. So here we are in 2022 doing it again. And I can't tell you, Lou, how I feel. I feel blessed. I know we're blessing others because the feedback has been, they're so excited about dressing up, because when the pandemic came in, everything was shut down. Even your churches, because African Americans, we dress up yes, to go to church. So we were not able to do that either. So people, and it just keeps growing. We said we were going to cut it off on last Friday, but people keep coming. So we know we have to cut off soon. But actually, that's how it started. My needs and reaching out to others for help and for information. And it's just been a wonderful journey. It's only been a 2-year journey, but it's been wonderful. Just about 2 years. Yes. So what else can I tell you about that?
What's amazing about your story is you highlighted something that is really a center point of the book that I'm referencing in this podcast together by the former U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy. And he said a lot of people do not realize that they have loneliness in their life.
Yeah.
And so you sharing your story, realizing that you've never been alone in your life, but even realizing that you have all these circles of connection in your life, but even then there could still be loneliness.
Absolutely.
And so there's a lot of people that on the outside, they might seem like they have a very connected life, but there might be areas in their life where there's still loneliness. And so it's amazing how you're sharing from your experience and wanting to bring connection to a group of people that are isolated and often lonely. And so you highlighted that disconnection you saw in yourself. Where are you seeing disconnection in the communities that you have worked with and you're working with this organization?
Gee, Lou, I see not that I don't know about the community, because I've had like over 50 years of working experience in the community, but I see it differently now that I'm older. And myself being a senior myself, and I tell people in less than a couple of years I'll be 80 years old. What is 80? You know what I'm saying? When I was a teen, I thought 40 was old, or older. Old, we thought it was old people. So it's I see all the things that we need as seniors, and nobody's asking us what we need or what we want. But that's where the disconnect is. I see a disconnection across the board: health, nutrition, transportation, housing. I see that whole disconnect, and especially in the community of people of color. Especially, we're kind of low on the, I don't want to say totem pole. I got to learn not to say that. But we are on the lower level, and there's disparities out there that need to be taken a look at, and we're doing that through many things. So I guess to me the most important thing is to ask us. So what I've done is I've set up focus groups across the community. Ask us what we want. Don't tell us what we need. Ask us what we want. If you ask us what we want, we may want a ranch-style apartment where we don't have steps to climb and we don't have to get on an elevator, a bathtub that we can just walk into. When you're talking about building housing, that's what I'm talking about now. We want a bathtub that we can just walk in and leave our walker or our cane on the outside and feel safe. How about a little grocery store right in the community where we live, because transportation is such a huge problem. It's costly, and it all depends on where you're located, whether or not you can get healthy foods or not. We ain't talking about the corner store where you only get fried foods or McDonald's or Burger King and all of the or Wendy's or whatever, but some place where we can go get fresh vegetables. We want to cook our own meals sometimes. So fresh vegetables and those things that we need for us, and nobody has asked us. So the focus group tells us it's set up of the attendants are people over the age of 55, mostly in your early 60s, mid 60s to 80 years old. So that we can tell you we don't want steps, because we most of the times we can't mobility wise we can't even walk up the steps or that kind of thing, So, and then because we're talking about falls when we started to talk about mobility, so that's where we are with that. That's a disconnect for me, and I think that accessing healthcare, as we talked earlier, if we don't have people to help us with that, the resources may be out there, Lou. But if we can't access them, there are language barriers. There are people that are illiterate. There's several things. So there's so much to do. There's lots to do. I hope I answered your question, because I start talking. Sure.
And it's amazing to see that even those physical barriers can prevent people from being connected and have connection in life. And it sounds like your organization is doing has done quite a bit to help combat isolation and
We're
loneliness.
We're working on it.
What are some other things that your organization has done or is planning to do to help bring connection to the community?
Well, what we did was on last year, we put out a suggestion box. What would you like to do? Again, asking us. We have contributed. Senior citizens have contributed to the community and to life, and we do have a say. Yeah. We're some of us are still vital and valuable. So we put out a suggestion box on last year, and one of the things that came up, it was the regular things like games and bingo and dominoes and that kind of thing. But there was one thing that struck our fancy was a fishing trip.
Oh, wow.
So guess what? So this year at the Senior Ball, we will be offering a game fishing day. And it's going to be at Black Creek Park from 10 o'clock in the morning till roughly 5 in the afternoon. You don't have to stay all day. But we are now working on transportation, especially for those, because we have a couple of folks that have MS. They're either on canes or walkers or a couple in a wheelchair. So we're trying to put that together so that everybody will be. We want it to be an inclusive type organization. Well, everybody is included. So we'll be at Black Lake on September 30th, and we'll be playing games and eating. Some of it will be healthy, Lou, and some of it won't, okay? And then there will be folks out on the fishing area, fishing.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So we're looking forward to that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So it's amazing what your organization has done and is continuing to do. To wrap up this podcast, can you share how you personally stay connected and build connections?
I'm very active in my church. I'm very active in the community. I sit on several boards in the community. I like plays and women's groups, and I started an African American women's group at our church, but it's not just for the women at our church. Anybody can come. We plan conferences where women can get together. We've planned a slumber party for women. Wow. Anybody that wants to come can come. So that's how I kind of keep myself busy. And I also do what I call a wisdom circle. And I invite people in. And we do it like every other month. And we invite people in to talk about their organizations and what they have to offer seniors, or anything that you really want to talk about, because we can't assume that people know about these things. So we offer whatever anybody wants to talk about. So that's where we are with that. Excited about how it's growing. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like you are doing many things and being connected in our community. And thank you for joining us on this podcast today and gracing us with your time and your story.
Oh, but can I just mention before I leave?
Sure. That
we have connections, partnerships with Family Promise of Greater Rochester for homeless seniors. That's growing. The U of R Geriatrics and Mental Memory Clinic. Lifespan. We're just moving right along. And these are people that support us to do with funds that sponsor us to do what we need to have done. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Martha, for being on this podcast.
Thank you.
Awesome. If you'd like to find out how to support or be connected to Senior Expressions, that information will be provided in this podcast show notes and information page. Martha Hope is the founder and CEO of the Senior Expressions Organization, a fellow Toastmaster, and she has a weekly radio show called The Martha Hope Show on 106.3 FM, Wednesdays from 1 to 2. Make sure to check that out. Once again, this is the Power of Connection podcast. Thank you for joining us.